Hello and welcome to Polity with Davina. Today we're talking about Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, and that he has reiterated his commitment to delivering legal outcomes that are not influenced by politicization, that are not partisan. So to quote him, he said, "We will not allow this nation to become a country where law enforcement is allowed to be used as an apparatus of politics." You know, the dude attracts a lot of criticism from the left and the right, mostly the right, because the right is objecting to their fascist spokesperson, Donald Trump, being indicted by various grand juries comprising 12 members of his peer group, indicting Donald Trump for various crimes, including business fraud, election fraud in terms of covering up extramarital affairs from voters by illicitly paying a adult film actress $130,000 via his then lawyer, Michael Cohen, for the purposes of deceiving the electorate, to say nothing of the various business fraud. And this is a man who has settled for $25 million, a case brought against him by Trump fans who had purchased Trump University courses that they then found were just fraudulent, not very very, very Trumpian in terms of character, but not a lot of involvement from Trump or his associates himself, just efforts to use seminars to try and sell them shares in real estate properties that Donald Trump owned. So you're lots of crimes committed by Donald Trump. If he didn't want to do the time, if he didn't want to be indicted, don't do the crime, I guess, is the old fallback. And why are Trump supporters so convinced that he hasn't done any of those crimes, that he's being persecuted? I don't know. I think a lot of them actually believe he has done the crimes, and they applaud his ability to get away with it and play the legal system and spin out delays, appeals, and attacking the members of the judicial system whose job it is to bring lawbreakers to account. So I think, whether they admit it or not, they admire and want to emulate his abuse of power, because fascism is a way of extracting power and importance from people who have holes in their heart, who have daddy complexes, resentment of maternal figures, just a general ability to have their racist gullibility weaponized, their racist, sexist gullibility weaponized. So people who are willing to overlook all of the evidence of Trump's tendencies to rip off subcontractors, to exploit people, to assault women, to have his voice recorded on an audio tape saying, when you're famous, you can do anything you want. You can grab women by their genitals. I've substituted the word that Trump used for not exactly a euphemism, but a cleaned up version of what he said, because I don't want to say the P word on a broadcast to X and YouTube. Oh, wow, actually I said X because more people are doing it. But let's call it Twitter. Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter for $44 billion was a fairly blatant, undeclared in-kind donation for Trump's political campaign. He's really been coming out of the closet with how desperately he wants to have Trump in office. The kind of extreme language he's used, the country is doomed unless Trump wins the election, shows how invested Elon Musk is, and that's outside of whatever the $13 billion of his own money he's invested in the purchase of a specific social media platform that's renowned for its political influence. A lot of thinkers and journalists and political figures do use Twitter, and even though it's a relatively small amount of the American population that use that platform, it's believed to be influential and significant in an election context. And Elon Musk has definitely been exploiting that after his purchase We know banks have been losing money hand over fist on that investment that they made in trusting Elon Musk. And also, we don't know what proportion, or at least I don't know what proportion of Saudi Arabian, Russian, Iranian investors have helped Musk achieve that goal of his to purchase that pro-democracy platform and pervert it to his own illicit ends of trying to curry favors and make Donald Trump beholden to him for help in building support amongst social media users, and particular Twitter users. And Elon Musk has definitely been flooding the platform with right-wing perspectives. I usually have more of a left-wing bubble, as it were, but Elon Musk doesn't just break my bubble, he massively violates it and plasters pro-Trump ads all over it that I'm quite sure Trump has not paid for, that are freebies that should be looked into by Merrick Garland. And I hope Merrick Garland understands that part of his job is to not allow the shrieking from the unhinged fanatics on the right to achieve a work the ref outcome in their favor. Because, of course, they do very loudly and heavily criticize Merrick Garland and say he should be jailed. It's very threatening and very, very typical of fascist movements to foment violence and the implied threat of violence if they don't get their own way, including being allowed to break the law with impunity, as they want in the case of Trump, as he has been given such high up endorsement in his pattern of doing that from the highest branch of judges, the highest echelon of the Supreme Court in the United States, not the highest echelon of the Supreme Court, the highest echelon of the judicial branch of government, which is to say the Supreme Court, that has 3 justices appointed by Trump, 6 conservative justices altogether. How many Catholics who Leonard Leo campaigned for their nomination to the Supreme Court bench? Probably about 5 or 6. And those Supreme Court justices were able to pass judgment saying that Donald Trump should have immunity for any official acts when in office, without qualifying what an official act specifically is, letting that be determined by other people, with the idea that any other decisions could be appealed back to the Supreme Court so that they can have the final say on what constitutes an official act. Does Trump, if he's reelected, ordering an assassination constitute an official act? Does Trump setting up murderous concentration camps for the potentially 11 million, but as he says himself, he thinks it's more people, the undocumented migrants who currently live, work, pay tax, and have often mixed status family members. So they may be married to an American, they may have children, very likely to have children born as Americans by virtue of being born in the United States of America. So he wants to cause a lot more family separation, rip people apart, in order to capitalize on the joyful glee that is released when you indulge people's appetite for violence, and you feed that appetite for violence and create it by circulating disinformation. So the Haitian migrants who are experiencing discrimination, vandalism to their cars, threats to their property and lives. A bomb threat was even called in today to the town hall in Springfield, Ohio. And it is a function of J.D. Vance's pronouncements, Trump's pronouncements on the debate stage, that vilify Haitian migrants. And it's done in order to empower Trump followers and Trump supporters with the kind of shared omnipotence that you feel when you think your leader is prepared to commit acts of violence on your behalf, and you feel empowered to commit those acts of violence yourself, because extreme vilification is a precursor to mistreatment, neglect, and violence. And many Black Americans died as a consequence of Trump's willful neglect of blue states during the COVID pandemic. And of course, those with less access to healthcare resources during that pandemic were more likely to suffer extremely consequential health outcomes, were more likely to experience huge medical debt, as well as respiratory failure and death, whilst Trump was withholding COVID tests, was withholding personal protective equipment or PPE from medical professionals in blue states. He was diverting resources to states that had voted for him, and that's just fine and dandy with conservatives who continue to support Trump, who have emotionally bonded with him and adopted him as the savior of their cause, which, whether or not they admit it, is a maintenance of the status quo, which to them is white cultural dominance, and in many cases, white Christian cultural dominance. And not just cultural dominance, but financial and institutional dominance. So that's all from me. I have to go for today, but North Dakota, is it North Dakota? Yes, the North Dakota abortion ban's been overturned. It's very important. So my closing remark will also be that when Trump vilifies people who have late-term abortion and describes Democrats as legalizing execution after birth, and references the remarks from a former Virginian governor, Ralph Northam was a pediatric neonatologist. So he had experienced the deaths of babies shortly after they were born due to extreme deformities or just conditions incompatible with life, and knew that in his state it was legal for parents to request an end to intrusive medical interventions and wires designed to prolong life when it's known that it's not going to succeed and the baby's going to die, and they just want to spend some peaceful, quiet time with their infant in non-painful circumstances without painful breathing apparatus being introduced, etc. And so that's talking about palliative care for terminally ill, fatally ill infants. And for Trump to use it and Republicans to exploit it as a way to demonize and vilify Democrats and their supporters and donors and officials is a precursor to violence. It's a way to try and excuse, justify, and feed an interest in violence against Democrats, using an excuse of, well, they execute babies, as when they're misrepresenting a kindness to babies to allow their parents to choose to hold and be with the babies in their moments of passing without painful medical interventions being made, done in a way that ostensibly might prolong life, but would be non-viable for the baby. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this short broadcast. Please tune in again. Polity with Davina is the name I'm going with at the moment. It's taken me years to feel comfortable using my first name on these live broadcasts, but I'm here at the moment, so trialing out this name, Polity with Davina. I use it as a hashtag. You can search for it every day to see if I've done a broadcast or not. It's easier for me to do when my children are at school. Thank you and take care. Don't forget to check your voter registration, invite people to vote, talk about the issues with them, share truth, share facts, and but more importantly, yes, encourage people who you already know are inclined to understand that reproductive rights are a human right for women whose lives should not be placed in danger, who should not be put in a position of bleeding out in parking lots because their miscarriage is now a legal gray area and doctors are afraid of being sued or indicted or jailed for any interventions they take to help stabilize the organ functioning, the future fertility, or even the life of a woman. So if you care about women, if you care about the lives of the women who you know and who you're even acquainted with, please consider researching this issue and not just buying the fabricated, vilifying, violence, incentivizing talking points of Trump and his cohort in the Republican Party. Thanks. Bye.